Today I'm going to be introducing you to 4 compositional considerations. What that means is I'm going to be introducing you to 4 different ways to arrange your subject matter in a drawing so as to convey an idea. These are things that we're going to be using all throughout the semester. After this presentation, I'm going to then walk you through an activity that you're going to be doing to demonstrate your understanding of these 4 compositional considerations, as well as practicing how to use these compositional considerations. Once again, you're going to be using these 4 all semester, so you are going to be responsible for them, okay? So, first things first, what is composition? Composition is arranging your subject matter and your focal points on a picture plane or through a viewfinder. In other words, how you arrange your objects in a drawing, in an artwork, to convey an idea. Those are things that we're going to be consciously doing, decisions that we are going to be making all throughout the semester. So let's get into the first one. Our first compositional consideration is going to be the rule of thirds. Throughout the semester, we're going to use a pound sign. You guys may call it a hashtag. It could be a tic-tac-toe sign, doesn't matter, but it's this symbol. We're going to use this symbol to represent rule of thirds. Basically what rule of thirds is doing is it's drawing a tic-tac-toe sign or a hashtag, if you will, over an artwork or over your composition. Basically what this does, the rule of thirds explains what part of an image the human eye is most strongly drawn towards first, which, as you can imagine, that's where you're going to want to put your focal point. That's the main subject of your artwork. Now, basically, like I said already, it's drawing an imaginary tic-tac-toe or hashtag across the image, and it breaks it into 9 equal squares. So in other words, thirds. Okay? What this is stating is that the areas where the lines intersect, those are the strongest areas for a focal point. So as we're sitting here looking at this drawing here, with this young girl, you'll notice that her head is on one of those intersections. That is the strongest point for or strongest area for a focal point. When I come down here and I'm looking at this cupola, I'm looking at and seeing that the main part of the cupola is right on this intersection right here. That's the strongest point for a focal point. That's what it's saying here. Now, the second strongest area is going to be along these lines. Okay, so if you notice, the girl is right along this left line, but her head is in that intersection, thus creating a very strong focal point in the composition. With the cupola, once again, the cupola is on the intersection, but you'll notice that the entire building is really along that right line. Now, one major misconception is that the focal point must be touching all 4 corners and all 4 lines. That is not correct. It's basically along one line or in one intersection, okay? Which then touches 2 intersections, just like here. It's basically almost touching 2 intersections, but it's along that line. Got it? It does not, I repeat, it does not have to touch all 4 corners or all 4 intersections, okay? Our next compositional consideration is going to be the golden triangle. We are going to be using a triangle to represent this compositional consideration all throughout the semester. This one's pretty easy, okay? And it kind of goes along with what your instincts in terms of centering your subjects tend to be. However, if you center something, you definitely want to do it with a purpose. So, golden triangle is something that was come up in the Renaissance. It's a very geometric form and was very popular and used specifically in a lot of Virgin and child paintings, which during the Renaissance there were many. A lot of the artwork done in the Renaissance was religiously based. One could say it even goes along with their idea, Catholics' idea of the Holy Trinity. There's 3 points. Okay, this form of composition is a basic triangle in the painting from the corners of the painting to the other side and then up or down towards the middle. So, just like you see here, we're starting at the top here, coming down along the side to a corner to the other side, so on and so forth. It's a triangle. I don't think I can make it any easier than that. Now, the reason to use a triangle is to create stability, but also you have multiple focal points, so you want to get across the composition, correct? So when you look at, for example, we're going to look at this Madonna and Child here, and you'll notice that she, technical difficulties here. You'll notice that she is the main focal point, so she's right at the top. and the direction that she's looking is down towards this cherub, and then this cherub is looking this direction. Even their arm is coming up over here. The position of this figure and this figure touching create this corner of the triangle, and it leads our eye towards the top. That's the triangle. Now, one thing I want you to notice in comparison with the Mona Lisa, who is very centered. You'll notice that her head is the top of the triangle, and then her hair and her shoulders come down to her arms, which creates the bottom corner. Arm comes across to the other elbow and then back up. So there's the triangle. Very stable. However, it's very centered. The reason why he did this is because one subject matter, one focal point. Here we have multiple focal points, and you'll notice that it's not perfectly horizontal. They're at diagonals. That's very important. Now you compare the backgrounds. Which one has a more involved background? This first image has a more involved background, hence we're pushing off to the side. Okay? Here, with not a lot of background, and Mona Lisa being the main focal point of this artwork, the background is not that developed. So it's kind of okay to have her in the middle. Does that make sense? Okay, our next compositional consideration is the L shape. Now, the L shape is very similar to the rule of thirds, okay? And we're going to be using an L to represent this composition throughout the semester. So, basically, the way that this works is you are creating an L in the composition, okay? It seems to work better if the space left out of the L is large or small, all right? So it isn't about having a huge L, okay? But it's really about using the space properly. This is a very easy composition to use. It's hard to mess up, and it usually creates an interesting composition. Now you'll notice that with the L's, okay, either our focal point or our main object is going, or our subject is going to be within the L, so it creates the positive space, and the empty space of the L is the negative space. That's one option. Then the other option is that our actual focal point, our subject of the artwork, is in the negative space of the L, and then the L itself is technically the background, or negative space. Okay? Those are things to consider when you're using the L shape. Is you don't necessarily have one specific object that you want to stand out more than another. It's essentially kind of a scene. Okay? But this helps create a sense of balance. It helps you utilize your space a little bit more successfully, and it helps you convey your idea more successfully. Again, the L shape is really easy to use and difficult to mess up. Moving on to our last compositional consideration. This is the strong diagonal, which we're going to be using, you guessed it, a diagonal line to represent that we are using a diagonal composition. Now, like the Renaissance had the golden triangle, the Baroque period had the strong diagonal. This is a style in which painters, sculptors, and architects really were seeking emotion and movement in a variety of their works. So they weren't just happy with just having their subjects be kind of stagnant. They wanted to create more sense of visual movement. They wanted to create more dynamic compositions instead of just, hey, look, this is what this is. Now they wanted to elicit more emotion, use their space more. So basically what they started to do is arrange the focal point of their artwork in a diagonal across the composition. So as you can see with these examples, which are good examples, obviously, of a strong diagonal, that the subject is, as exemplified by this red line, going across the composition, right? You'll notice we have our main subject here, and then the way that the body's position is coming here. Now, one could argue that they actually took a lot of their inspiration from the golden triangle, because if I do this, you'll notice that could start to create, in essence, a triangle. Okay? Yes, there are relationships, and that's something that you're going to find all throughout these compositions, is that they are very similar and they relate to each other. Here you'll notice once again how the main subject is going across. Same thing here with the train. Key thing I want you to understand with this one is even though you're using a diagonal, you're not going from corner to corner. That splits your composition in half, and that is not a good thing. So we want to make sure that we're not going corner to corner, but rather that we are touching one side and going to another side. So as you can see here, coming to this side, and I'm touching here. So that's close to the corner, but it's not the corner. Same thing here and here. Here and here. All right. So that's the strong diagonal. Now, in the next video, I'm going to be showing you how to apply these and what your activity is going to be in terms of drawing to demonstrate your understanding and your application of these. Once again, you've got your 4, you've got the rule of thirds, L shape, golden triangle, strong diagonal. You are not typically going to find one on its own. There's typically, if I see rule of thirds, there may be an L shape in there. I may use a diagonal. So it's not necessarily that it's always just one. So keep that in mind as we move forward.